Hey everybody, today what we're going to talk about, you can see the title on the screen, measures of central tendency. Now, that is a very, very technical term for us, but really what we're talking about when we say central tendency is it's that key word there of central. Like we're trying to get to the heart of something, we're trying to get to the middle of something. And quite often, an English word that we would use to represent a value that represents information would be the word average. So what we're talking about today are different ways to measure average. And what you'll see down below is what should be pretty decent review for you. The idea that what we're going to talk about is mean, median, and mode. Mean, median, and mode would be three examples of things that can be referred to as the average of data, representative of data. So what we want to do today, cover a review of how we find mean, median, and mode, and make sure you guys are good to make those calculations. Okay, let's jump right in. What you'll see on your lesson page, I just went through and tried to pick up something that was pretty generic. There's some information about Canada's provinces and the number of provincial parks in each. So you have a table with all that data. We have one problem that I'd like to talk about today. Plain and simple, can you determine the mean, median, and mode? So I want you to jump in, give those three a shot, see what you remember. Work your way through, scramble through for it. There's no penalty. See what you can come up with. And then let's go through and see how we match up. So I'm going to tell you, pause the video now, give it a shot, and then we'll come back in a bit. Okay? Pause it now. Okay, so we're back. So we're going to do a little check on how well we did with the mean. Now, regardless of just checking a final answer, we want to make sure that we're good on process. So if you had a bit of a hiccup, a little memory lapse, or you were completely unsure how to work our way through and find mean, then I would recommend getting this down. If you were looking for like a formula or something to kind of represent that, this may be one way that you could think about it. For us to go through and determine our mean, really what we need to do is we need to add up all the data. So to find our mean, what we could say is we find a sum of the data. We are going to add up every single one of those values. So we are going to add up every single one of those total number of provincial parks in each province. Once we've added all that up, then what we're going to do is we are going to divide that value by the number of data. So the number that we're trying to break this up among. So if we do a quick calculation, we should be able to go through and add up that whole column and realize that we have 1,288 provincial parks. But that total number of provincial parks is broken up over 10 provinces. And hopefully we're able to do that without a calculator. And we can come in on 128.8 provincial parks. That would be our median. So if you are looking for a formula, there's the idea in purple. Add up all your data, divide it by the number of data. Can I make one suggestion? Double check that figure from time to time. Yes, you're going to go through and probably use a calculator to find the sum of that data, not because you need a calculator, but it really works for speed. There are so many opportunities to make a silly data entry error that when you go 93 plus 31 plus 122 plus 48 plus 50, you're hitting so many buttons. The chances of you making a mistake aren't that bad. And so my suggestion might be, especially with something where there's only 10 numbers to add together, punch them all up, see what you get. Then enter them all in, see what you get again. And make sure that you got the same thing. If you got the same thing twice, I feel pretty confident in what you have. So there we go. There is your mean for that data. Okay, now we're going to jump into median. If you had a hiccup and all you got was mean and you haven't had a chance to find the median, then I want you to do that now. So we're going to pause the video again and you give it a shot. Okay, pause it now. Okay, we're back. Now, one thing I want to highlight for you, when you take a look at the median, you will notice that at the bottom of the page, I have gone through and I have now written out all of our data in numerical order, from least to greatest. This is a necessity for us to go through and find the median. So as you're working your way through that, one suggestion I might give is literally cross off your data. Okay, my lowest one was 31, I write that down, then I have another 31, I write that down, then I have another 48, I write that down. And as you're slowly writing down all those numbers, cross them off to make sure that you haven't missed one. At the very end, when you have everything written down, just do a quick check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, that matches up. I have not missed any. That way, you'll go through and you'll find any silly mistakes you may have made in terms of copying down that data. Trust me, it is not difficult to miss a number. Okay, now that we've done that, what median is asking you for is the middle data. Median actually means middle. And so what we need to do is we need to find the piece of data that is in the middle of all of the data numerically. So there's a couple ways that we can do this. And with a small data set like this, I might recommend doing this. Start counting in from the extremes. If we're looking to find the middle, let's work our way to the middle. So let's cross off one of both numbers on the extremes. We'll cross off another one. We'll cross off another one. We'll cross off another one. And now we notice we're left with 2 pieces of data. If, when we ended up going through and crossing off and crossing off and crossing off to work to the middle, we were only left with 1 piece of data, that would be your median. If we are left with 2 pieces of data, then it is our job to find the mean of that median, the mean of that data, which means we would have to find the sum and then divide by the number of data. And so we end up getting our 93 plus 115. That's going to give us a nice, neat number of 208. We need to divide that by 2, and so we get 104. That would be our median. Nice. Now, I want to come back to all that green at the bottom of your page. If our data set was just 10 numbers, then doing that is actually pretty quick. What if our data set was 1,000 numbers? Was something uglier, like 893 numbers? Then sitting there and crossing off, working your way to the middle is not efficient. So there is a little formula you can use that can help you out to figure out how to get to that middle. And if you're looking for a formula to help you with that, then this might be one that you might like to use. What we can do is we can look at the number of data that we have in total. You will notice that we have 10 pieces of data. So if we're looking for which one is the middle, then what we do is we take our number of data, we add 1 to it, and then divide by 2. And that's going to get us to the middle. So let's say that we, didn't want to spend the time crossing off things to try to figure out where the middle of this data set of 10 things were. What we could have done is we could have used that orange. So I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit just so we have a little more room and so we can see. What I could have done was said, I have 10 pieces of data. I am going to add 1 and then divide by 2. So that gives me 11 divided by 2, which is 5.5. So what that tells me then is I am halfway, that's what the 0.5 means, past my fifth piece of data. So it means I go just past my fifth. So look over at my number set now, and there would be me going 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5. My median is in the middle of those two. There you guys go. If, when I was to calculate it, I only had a whole number, like say the 0.5 hadn't been there and it was just 5, well then the fifth piece of data is my median. Okay, hopefully that's a couple quick things on mean and median, and now we got our last one with mode. If you did not find a chance to get your mode, then pause the video now and give it a shot. Okay, pause it now. Okay, we're back. You'll just see down at the bottom, I have all my information written out in numerical order again. For some people, you might find that useful when finding your mode. Key thing to remember for mode means most often. So what we're looking for is the data that shows up most often. And you'll find that as you take your peek. When I write everything out in numerical order, it does become easier to see. In a small data set, it's not too bad. You can identify, hey, 31 shows up twice. But in numerical order, you can also see it pretty easily there. So in this case, our mode would be 31. Okay, your job, know how to calculate mean, median, and mode. And then what we want to push our way towards is to start thinking about those different measures of central tendency, those different averages, if you would say. Numbers that are meant to describe the data. And then we want to think about their accuracy. So if you look at the bottom of the page, I've asked you the question, which measure of central tendency gives the most accurate indication of the center of that data, and then which gives the worst? So if I had to jot down really quickly, we had a mean of 128.8. We had a median of 104. And we had a mode of 31. Which one of those measures would give the most accurate indication of the center of that data? Which one's most representative? And then which one's the worst? You mull that over. There's a lot of attitudes towards it. It really is an opinion piece. It really is, and it's more about your justification. So you may disagree with me here. That's okay. You just make sure you have a good argument. I might argue to you that I think the median is the best. And the reason why I would make that argument, my mean right now is being affected by those provinces that have huge number of provincial parks. If you take a look back at your data, you'll notice that we have Ontario that has 261 parks. We have BC that has 390. Those two provinces are really pulling the data, that mean, up higher than maybe what's represented. If you take a quick peek and scan your way down all of those, that mean of 128.8 would put, if there was a province that had that, as fourth highest. And I think you could have a pretty valid argument for then that's not really the most accurate indicator of the center of that data. Jump to median, you can see 104 is the middle. And that might end up being the best representation for us on this one. It's not always. Perhaps you have a large number of lower ends, it drags it down, the median can get pulled in either direction. but maybe less likely. It would be less likely affected, or I should say it's not as affected as much by the extremes of the data. I think if we had to go worst, I think the worst one is down here in the mode. Like 31, that is the lowest. And if somebody was to try to tell me that 31 would be a good indicator of the middle of that data, then I think that's pretty misleading. It might happen more often, but it doesn't mean that it's the middle. So if we made some arguments somewhere along the lines that take into account the entire set of data and then the use of these as 3 indicators. Again, not all arguments have to match up, and you may disagree with what I've said, but we need to have a good argument about what is representative. Okay, your job going into practice. Make sure that you are good to calculate mean, median, and mode. And then you want to be able to have some sort of argument as to which measure best represents data. And that may change with your given set of data. Okay, your job now, jump in and get some practice. Good luck.